We're live.
All right. Well, welcome. It's great to see people joining. Happy Friday. And I'd love to hear as you're joining, there's a question on the welcome page here that says to use the chat and share your funniest moment with working remotely so far. So we'd love to hear that if you can find the chat button at the bottom of your screen, and love to hear any fun moments you've had, funniest moments you've had while working remotely so far. I know we've had quite a few. It's a big challenge these days working remotely.
Yeah, so Sharon, I'm starting to see the attendee list rise in numbers there. So it might take them a moment for the audio to connect, but at least they'll see that
Great.
those instructions on screen.
Great. And you can hear me okay as I was talking?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Okay, great. So yes, so if you're joining today, would love to hear some of your funniest moments with working remotely so far. So here's Shannon saying, my neighbors have two donkeys, and when the windows open, my colleagues on the call could hear them braying. Isn't that a riot, Shannon, with the donkey noise? I love it. And that's the thing, you know, when we're doing these remote interviews, virtual interviews, we are having things happen in the background. You can't help it. So many times you can't control the noise around you, and funny things end up happening. Any of you have children that you're homeschooling, or any other kinds of interruptions you've had? Would love that. Yeah, Christopher, my cat walked across my keyboard once while on a virtual call. Gotta love that, right? The cats, I have a cat too, and same things have happened. It's just unbelievable how the animals come into the picture while we're working remotely. Oh, this was really funny. Just yesterday, Sam says, someone thought they were on mute during a leadership team offsite, and they were doing dishes, and pots and pans were banging away in the background. And we had to say, hey, you know, we can hear someone doing dishes. So it's just a riot, you know, you do your best, but some of these things just happen. And one of my funniest moments was also dealing with a cat. Well, my computer crashed like 2 minutes before a really important meeting. And of course, I called Randy in a panic and ended up running to my husband's office at home and getting on his computer. And then the door was left open. The cat comes in, not only jumps up by the keyboard, but then jumped on a curtain rod, which then came crashing to the ground. So that's how I started the meeting that day, with a curtain rod crashing. So anyone else have any funniest moments with working remotely so far that they want to share?
So Sharon, I have something that actually has stuck with me for maybe almost a decade now. It's when WebEx all started. So my child at the time barged into my office and he just started yelling, frog, frog. So I heard him say frog. He was showing a picture of his little animal book. He had the picture of the frog on there, but the audience heard something completely different. They heard this they heard this cute little voice just dropping F-bombs left and right. But yeah, not all kids can enunciate some four little words properly. But yeah, I was very quick to hit the mute button. But then I unmuted because I wanted everyone to hear my explanation. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's a nice picture of a frog.
Love
So
it.
yeah.
Yeah. And we all have to be more understanding when these things happen. And I know that many of you conduct interviews online. So would love to hear some of the fun moments that you've had. Anne Marie is asking if we can see or hear her.
So Anne Marie, we're actually in a webinar format, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, we can only see the panelists at the moment.
Great, but welcome, welcome. And you can definitely put things in the chat. We see that. So if anyone has another funniest moment with working remotely so far, please share. And if not, we'll turn it over to Ryan, who's going to kick us off today.
All right, well, let's get started. I want to welcome everyone today. I know we still have some attendees coming in, and that's great. I love seeing the numbers go up. But welcome to NETPA's virtual meeting. So in the last few months, we've taken our meetings online. We're getting some amazing feedback on the quality of guests we have and the quality of employers that we have on here. Real quick introduction, I'm the president of NETPA. I actually am the CEO of a company called Core Matters, and what we do is we help growing companies hire better people faster. A little bit about NETPA. So for those of you that have joined us before, you know that our mission is to provide a vast resource of education, training, and networking to employers and community agencies. We really want to connect the job seekers with the best employers in the Valley. We also love to educate and collaborate through topics of interest. That's why Sharon is here today. We have had a lot of people raise their hand and say, how do we do this virtual interviewing, these virtual meetings? And I do a lot of them, but I will tell you, I am not an expert when it comes to this stuff. I'm still learning it like a lot of us out there. And we value all members, regardless of occupation, background, or ethnicity. We believe in treating all members with respect, dignity, and kindness. And we value being able to contribute to the community, and we encourage our members to do the same. So any chance we get, we love to bring people in our community to our NETPA members and bring value. And I just love it that our speaker today is actually here in the Valley, although a little bit north, right? Cave Creek, I believe.
Cave Creek, yes.
So I want to introduce the team real quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sharon and let her go through this training today that I am really looking forward to. So Dr. Sharon Lamm-Hartman is the founder and CEO of Inside Out Learning. She's been doing this for over 25 years and 40 plus consultants, I believe. So a large team of helping organizations with their training, with their virtual production. It's great. You're a member of the Women's President Organization. Only 3% of women-owned businesses qualify. So this just goes to say that there are other organizations out there watching what Inside Out Learning is doing, and that's amazing. And you have a book coming out next year called The Authenticity Code about presence. So your presence plus your audience plus your presentation equals success. So we're going to get to see an amazing presentation today. We're going to raise the bar a little bit. And I know that we've gone through some practice with this. You've got your amazing team. I'm really looking forward to it. We've also have Randy, who is the video and technology expert. So we'll probably hear from him. I know he's going to be managing everything. In fact, I think I saw him get into a fighter jet right before we got started here. So he knows how to work this whole thing. It's amazing. Over 20 years doing this. In fact, you said 10 years ago, a virtual meeting. I didn't even know we were doing those 10 years ago. So clearly this guy is at the forefront of what's going on. And then we also have Shannon here. I've got to work with Shannon as we prepared this event. She's the business operations manager and virtual program moderator for Inside Out Learning. With over 15 years experience, and she's worked with some really large organizations. So what I'd love to do is turn this over to Sharon and her team and get really ready to take some notes and learn how to do these virtual interviews and these virtual presentations. So
Wonderful.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Appreciate the introduction. And welcome, everyone. We're really excited to be with you today. And we started out with a question for you to share your funniest moments with working remotely so far. So started to hear some of those. And, working remotely can be a challenge. It really can. And so when we think about working remotely, we can kind of think about different interruptions that we may have when you're conducting an interview. Oh, does someone have is someone unmuted, Randy? So that's actually one of those interruptions that you can have while working remotely is dog barking, right? Some of us also think about children. So I've got a 15-year-old son right now who's going to be doing homeschooling right now. So there's a lot of interruptions that can happen, especially, and I'm lucky to have a 15-year-old. Many of you may have smaller children at home as well. That can be an introduction like Randy. So I just know that this can often make us feel like pulling our hair out. And that's why we're here today, is to give you some tips for how to run effective virtual interviews and remote meetings. It's so critical to be able to do that. So with that, I'm going to let Randy walk us through our virtual platform today so that you know where everything is.
All right. So as I mentioned, we're on a webinar platform today. This is what Zoom typically looks like. But for today, we're going to be utilizing the chat, the raise hand feature, and the Q&A section of the Zoom interface here. Now, Shannon is in the background. We also have our fabulous Samantha in the background as well, helping us moderate any questions. And if we can't answer anything live or during the webinar today, we will be sure to follow up. And of course, we're all going to be muted. It's 2020. But if you have any technical issues, any glitches at all, and you just can't hear or watch the content, don't worry. We will have a recording of this later. So I'm going to start this off with a poll, and I'll hand it over to Sharon as I operate this poll here.
Great. So we would love to know, how comfortable are you working virtually? Are you more like this gentleman on the left who says, oh, my computer has a virus, I better wash my hands? Or might you be more at that 5 level where you're expert and kind of could be teaching this class? So we'd love to hear where our audience is today and see on what spectrum, because then we know how to target in terms of our communication. So one of the things we're going to be teaching today is really speaking your audience's language and speaking the interviewer's language, speaking the interviewee's language. So I'm seeing here, if we can share the poll results, that we've got about 40% of you who are at a 4. So very good, excellent. And many of us have been in this, right, since March. We've been in this more virtual environment since March, and we've been a virtual team for 20 years. So many of us have a lot of experience in terms of working virtually. So it's great to know that. And then also 15% of you are at the expert level. So please share today. We are all here to learn from each other. So share your experiences today in the chat, and we'd love to hear new ideas, fresh ideas as well. And 25% of you are at a 3, 10% at 2, and 10% at the 1, the novice. So we need to now, when we've asked this question about our audience, we need to make sure to speak to all audience members in terms of where you're at in your virtual experience. And we'll make sure to do that. All right, Randy, so you have shared the results. Mine looks different. Here we go. So workshop summary. What are we going to do today? We're going to provide some best practices for interviewing virtually. And really the reason is to prevent you from pulling your hair out and to make the transition to interviewing and hiring remotely with ease, efficiency, and productivity. And I know that some of you are hiring, you're recruiting, you're HR professionals who are conducting the interviews. Some of you are community partners who are helping job seekers. And some of you might be job seekers as well, who are actually going through the interviews. We really want to speak to all 3 of these audience members today. And we're hoping at the end of this time together that you're going to feel more confident and comfortable interviewing and hiring virtually. and that you learn at least 3 new tips that you can commit to use. So that's our charter today, and hope that we achieve that. So the agenda we're going to do is how to best set up your home office. Randy's going to walk us through that. And then we're going to share, Randy and I, how to make an authentic virtual impression. So that we're going to talk a little bit about that and presence and nonverbal communication. And then we're also going to talk about how to help others feel comfortable and at ease, because that's very, very important as we are conducting interviews, or also being on the receiving end of that as well. So there is a workbook that you can download, and Shannon has been kind enough to put that link in the chat. All you need to do is click on the link, and it's very easy to download. We're going to use that today. It's an interactive workbook. You don't have to print it, but you can simply click download and kind of keep that off to the side for when we refer to it. If you prefer to print it, you certainly can. But this is going to be some really helpful information for you to have even after we're done today, that I think will really help with having those really productive interviews. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Randy, who can walk us through that first module.
All right, so the first step in all of this is getting your environment squared away so that you can be as productive and as effective as you can be virtually. Now, just a quick poll in the chat, share which one of these desks look like yours. So personally, mine actually looks like 2, because I'm the neighborhood nerd and I commonly fix things for neighbors all the time. So there's commonly a mess in my office. But let's see, I see a 3 there, nice and tidy. Yeah, and 3 is very common these days because we're starting to use more screens, more devices all on our desk these days. I see a 1. Yeah, we're jamming all of our work that we typically have in the physical environment, in the physical office, and now we're jamming it into our virtual environment at home. So I see another 3. Oh yeah, that's right. We are working with HR professionals right now, so we're seeing we should see a lot of 3s and 1s. Yeah, I guess I'm all by myself in the number 2 world here. 1 and 3, 1 and 3. Anne Marie says 1 and 3 mostly. All right. Well, the easiest thing that you can do is to get comfortable first and foremost. We do have links in the workbook on how to configure your space to not only make it more efficient and effective, but then again, you guys are 1s and 3s, so I don't need to talk about that. Again, HR professionals know all about ergonomics and all of the issues that can come from that. But I know that many of you are coming from the office place and into your home space, and typically we're on our laptop. So the easiest thing that you can do is just to elevate that. Now we do have a shopping list of different things that you can use in your environment in the workbook as well, including mounts and stands for your laptop and monitor. Now this was the quickest thing that I did to upgrade my environment. I just got a seat cushion and I didn't have to go out and buy a brand new one. But again, we do have a shopping list for all of the things that you might need in your home office. Now this is something that I personally love. It's these blue light blocking glasses. And what's nice is that it just reduces eye strain. I don't have them on right now because I have my Coke bottle glasses, because otherwise I have these tiny little beady eyes on camera. So I'm not using those right now. But the other thing is these help with sleep. I didn't know this, but apparently blue lights coming from your devices actually reduce your melatonin production in your brain. So just a little science tip there. Now, when it comes to getting everything squared away, that's great. But what about things like this? No one likes to hear this. So if you're typing, if you're taking notes, hit mute. And if you have to do something on camera, maybe one of your children walked into the scene. I know that Sharon, one of your kids or your son was cleaning right behind you. So it looked like you had a janitorial staff in your office there for a moment, but no, you just had to hit that stop video button. But we were with good company. We were all it was all internal, so that's okay. But when it comes to more important meetings, keep an eye on your environment and know when you have to hit that stop, mute, or that mute and that stop video button. Here's another tip. When you're sharing your screen or your desktop, those buttons actually disappear and they float up to the top of your screen in the screen sharing menu. And that's common with Zoom and WebEx. And by the way, we are going to be talking about Zoom and WebEx quite often, but everything that we're covering today applies to all of the platforms out there, okay? We're going to talk about these in more detail in just a moment, but these are the things that help with your how you are being seen. So your computer not working properly, that can add to distractions. Virtual backgrounds can add to the distractions as well. But we will talk about that in more detail in just a moment. I wanted to just make it a point that these are some of the things that add to your presence. Now I have little earbuds on. Another thing that you can do, very simple thing that you can do, is just put a pair of headphones on, because there's that potential for echo. And the last thing you want your audience to hear, or if you're a participant, the last thing you want to be is a distraction to everyone else. So a simple thing that you can do, get a pair of headphones. And I did this, but this is, I had to add that, I had to give this its own bullet point because this is my big pet peeve right here. It's tapping. It's like when you're in a regular meeting and someone's got the clicky pen and they got that noise going, that's what this is to me. But the other thing is I come from a background in video production, and camera angles are everything. And I know that a lot of you are on laptops, and the last thing you want is that very unflattering up the nostril shot, which most of you typically have when you're looking down at a laptop. So just keep that in mind. We mentioned the use of mounts and stands for your laptop, but that definitely helps with eye-level eye contact. And if you have a web camera, get one of those monopod with the tripod adapters, and those are great. In fact, I have that right behind my monitor right now, holding up my web camera. So it's great for that natural eye contact at eye level. Now, it doesn't matter how nice your camera is, if you don't have good lighting. Now, a simple fix to this is a couple of desktop lamps, but the key is here to have your foreground or your face lit as much or more than your background. Otherwise, you will get this shady character seen in the middle here. I'm sure some of you have seen that. And then the background. We'll talk about virtual backgrounds in just a minute here, but that's the other reason why I have my virtual background. I mentioned that I fix a lot of things. So right behind the screen here is a mess of cables and computer components and things like that. So green screens. I'm actually going to show you guys how to activate your green screen. And if anyone is willing, go ahead and use the raise hand feature. I'm actually going to call upon some of you to show off your virtual background. So this is how you do it on a PC. You click on the little arrow right here next to the video button, and then you should be able to choose virtual background. And it might require you to download and install it, but it looks like we have a couple of raised hands already. Let me switch to a Mac, and then I'll call on one of you in just a moment. For a Mac, that's up in the top left corner, and that's how you find the preferences and then the virtual background options there. Now, let's see here. I'm going to call on Joan and Anne-Marie. So I'm going to upgrade you guys to panelists. And what that allows you to do is to join us on the presenter panel here. And go ahead and start your video if you'd like. So I'm promoting Anne-Marie and Jose to panelists. There you are. And I see Shannon actually has her clone. And I see Joanne there too. So Joanne, is that your virtual background? That looks very clean. That looks very natural, actually.
That's my actual background.
All right. And Samantha, it's happy hour somewhere in the world. Apparently Sam's in that place. Now, let me show you why you would not want to use virtual background. So Joan and let's see, Anne Marie. Anne Marie, go ahead and start your video if you can. Let me see if I can activate that for you. So while Anne Marie is getting that turned on there, this is when you shouldn't use it. When you show up like this, or when you show up like this, when your lighting doesn't work for you, or your wardrobe isn't working for that virtual background. But then sometimes there's just contrast that doesn't work out for you. So these are the times when you should not use it, when it detracts. Now, Anne Marie has a really good example of when you want to use it, when it adds to your message, when it adds to you as a presenter, or it adds to your company's brand. So the other things that I mentioned, when the lighting is not good, that affects how it shows up on camera. There's contrast, but the other thing is, I don't think I mentioned it here, your computer. If your computer is running all of these different programs and sharing your screen, is using a lot of resources. So if you're on a slower computer, or if you're on a laptop, which doesn't have typically doesn't have a video card that's meant for it, it'll start to slow down and chug along and try to do all of those green screen features. So use it when it adds to your message, when it doesn't distract. And I really like Anne Marie's. In fact, a really cool feature in Zoom is the ability to spotlight people. So I'm going to feature Anne Marie. I love the background there. She's a walking billboard, pretty much.
I just wanted to unmute and say thank you. I'll mute back.
All right. Well, thank you for the volunteers. I'm going to go ahead and have you guys join the crowd in just a moment here. But Shannon, any questions?
There was one interesting comment in chat. Tim had said, I have modified my desk to hold my headphones and phone under the desk. So, you know, flat surface is a nice commodity, nice thing to have, a lot of space to move. I wonder how Tim did that. Maybe carpentry is his hobby, but anything you can do to keep your space organized, that sounds like one of the more creative ideas. I thought I'd share it.
Yeah, and I have a junk bin. Probably can't see it on camera, but whenever things start to float onto my desktop, I typically start to throw things in there. But then again, if you look behind my screen, I have about 5 junk bins, so I have some work to do once the weekend hits. So just some very simple things that you can do to help eliminate the distractions and make your environment effective and efficient. Now, there's the distractions that can happen, and then there are the technical distractions. Now, we all assume internet's going to work for us, but lately things have been glitchy, especially with all of the kids jumping on a Zoom lately. So one thing that you can do is I have a hotspot here, and this is a just in case things crash on me. I have this as a backup. So if you've got that important interview or that interviewee, I think what's the term? Someone put in chat, what's the term? I think it's called purple squirrel. It's like that candidate that has every single requirement that you need checked and then more. I think that's what it's called. Someone put that in the chat. So if you've got that important meeting and your internet dies, these are a lifesaver. So definitely consider one of those. And I'll talk about why it's good to have one in another case here. But this is something that you might notice. We have a bunch of co-hosts, and that's for redundancy. Let's say my internet dies, my computer crashes. They actually have the slides, so I can dial in, which is actually another tip right here, into the meeting. So when you get a meeting invite, it typically has the login information, but it also has a phone number that you can dial in with. So a best practice that I commonly use with very important meetings is I'll actually dial into the meeting as well. Now, right now I'm using it as a timer, otherwise you would see another phone number dialed in. But definitely consider those redundancies. Now, Sharon and a couple of our other presenters actually use something called Speedify, and what that does is it allows you to use multiple internet connections. So I've got my wired connection at home as well, and those are 2 internet connections that I've combined for a redundant network. So that's also in the workbook as well. Now there are those technical distractions, and then I mentioned the physical distractions, the kids. Now, if you haven't seen this video, let me actually play it here. I'll play it. Let's see. I'll play it as my own background here. That's the nice thing about Zoom is you can use videos as your background. Um, let's see here. Sorry, it's glitching on me, but I used to have this video where this child that you see on camera here or on the screen actually walks into the room, and then you see this gentleman's wife run in and not only grab the little girl with the yellow shirt, but also grabs a little baby that came in on a walker. So those distractions can easily be prevented with a setting of expectations. On my door, I have a sign that says that I'm live and I'm recording. It's in big red letters, and it's actually sitting on the doorknob, so people can't actually walk in without seeing it. There's also the expectation of volume. I have 3 kids, and it can get pretty noisy. So they know, okay, between this time and this time, it's time to quiet down. Other kids, sometimes they might forget. So forgive me if they make noise in the background, but again, use that sign, set the expectations. But one other thing is the use of the internet. So another reason to have these hotspots. If they have to be on a Zoom call with their teacher and the times just simply overlap and you can't have them on Zoom later, let them use one of these, or you use it if they have to give a class presentation, for example. The other thing is the distractions that actually are as a result of our system here. Now, by default, there are settings in WebEx and Zoom that allow you to turn off notifications of any kind when you're sharing your screen, which is great. But just to be on the safe side, these are some things that you can do on your Mac or your PC on how to turn off those distractions. This is more for the people that have those habits of getting distracted by fantasy football. Sorry, there was an update. And then there are Facebook, social media distractions, things like that. So these are more for those behaviors and helping eliminate those distractions. This is something that I actually use as well. I am expecting a delivery, but unfortunately it's not something that I have to sign for. But if it was, I would know exactly when I would have to get up, or if I had to get up. The only solicitor I would actually answer the door for is if they're like 4 feet tall and have a box of cookies. But other than that, I typically just ignore people that walk up to the door. And that smart doorbell, or that Ring doorbell camera, it's a big help knowing when I can get up and when I don't need to. So lots of resources, lots of links here that you can click on in the workbook, but do check those out. These are some things that you can do to help improve the efficiency of your work environment at home. Now, that's all about how you show up, but how do you make that impression? Sharon is actually going to talk about this on how you as a person can connect with your audience authentically.
Thank you, Randy. So before we move on to that, are there any questions that you have about setting up your remote environment, your virtual environment? Are there any questions that you'd like to ask? Anne-Marie had made a comment that that her background sometimes cuts off part of her hairdo. So I suggested maybe a green screen could help there. Randy, what do you think?
Yeah, actually, let me show you what my green screen looks like. And
Great.
I'll remove my virtual background and you'll see.
There it
It
is.
literally is a green screen, and I literally have, whoops, wrong side. Let's go to door number 2. Okay, apparently I can't swivel this green screen, and I'm not an alcoholic. That's just a problem. But there is, you'll see that there's a crease right down the middle of the background here. When this whole pandemic thing started, all of the green screens were marked up 50, 100%. So I actually just went down to the dollar store. I got some green poster board and I just tacked it onto a frame. So very simple fix. Zoom is very good when it comes to using your green screen um, and using that effectively to clean out those edges. Now, so here it is when I'm applying the green screen effect, but here it is when I don't have that effect turned on. You'll see that there's some green on my glasses there. I've got a little bit of a green web there on my fingers, like Aquaman. Um, so that's the great thing about using the green screen as it was intended in Zoom. But if you try to use your virtual background without a green screen, yeah, you might see some of those blending issues, and especially around hair. So yeah, great question.
And Randy, there's another question in there. I don't know if you or Sharon, but I think it's an excellent question. What about as hiring managers keeping equity in mind for those who might not have private spaces in their home available?
Mm-hmm.
So that is an interesting question.
That's a good question. Yeah, and that actually is a great segue into Sharon's section, because there's the use of technology to maybe prop yourself to appear in a different way, but yeah, there's that authentic equation or authenticity equation, and Sharon's actually going to talk about that. But on the technical side, um, if you make it in an environment where you have this plain background, or maybe just your living room, that might make it a little more personable. But that's up to you and understanding your audience. So really good question.
Yeah, I think it is as well. And I think that, there's two ways of looking at that, right? You can give tips to your job seekers in terms of where to conduct an interview or how to conduct an interview. And we're going to share with you a checklist for that a little later on. And if it's you that has problem with a private space, it's all in how we communicate. So like Randy said, we're going to walk you through a few options now on how to make an authentic virtual impression. Because you could be very authentic and say, look, this is my reality. This is where I'm at right now. Many of us are working from home, and we have to just be open and honest. And all of that really goes into your presence. And so when we talk about authentic presence, and my book that's coming out, The Authenticity Code, your presence plus your audience plus your presentation equals your success. Your presence is critical in a virtual environment and face-to-face. So what does it mean to have an authentic presence? Does anyone have any thoughts on that they want to put into the chat? And you definitely, Randy, don't they want to choose the all panelists and attendees when they're chatting?
Yes, all panelists and attendees. So when you're typing in chat, there's an option to chat with just the panelists, and then there's an option to chat with all panelists and all attendees. In fact, let me put that on screen for just a moment, just to show you. So here's the drop down here. So you see that there is a drop down and the option to chat with all panelists and all attendees.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Randy. So seeing here, Anne-Marie saying a little vulnerability. Yes, that's being authentic. Having personal but still professional items in your background. Sherry, excellent point, right? Because you want to connect with the person you're interviewing, or if you're a job seeker, you want to connect with your interviewer. So both of those are excellent suggestions around having that authentic presence. And here's how we define authentic presence in our programs is how you affect others by the impression you make through your character, your virtual presence, your engagement, your communications, and the general mode of conversation you have with others. So much goes into your presence. It's not just what you're wearing or whether you smile. People pick up, right, on your character, your engagement, the way you communicate. And if you think about it, what percent, right? So let's hear some of your thoughts in the chat. Authentic presence counts for what percent of what it takes to be successful in a job interview? What do you think that percent is? That you're going to really want to hire that person. I love it. 100, 90, 90, 80. We're talking high percents here, and you know it. And right, 10% skill, 90% presence. It's high. I've seen anywhere from 80 to 90. So what that means is that two people could have the same backgrounds that you're interviewing, similar experience, similar backgrounds in terms of their experience levels, their skills, and then one has better presence. Aren't you going to hire the one with better presence? So that is the key. And so how do we have great presence? And you want to have great presence as an interviewer as well. I mean, think about that. How you show up communicates the reputation of your company that you're representing. And also job seekers, they are interviewing you as well. You know, is this the kind of culture I want to work in? So we have 12 qualities that we have studied extensively over the past 20 years that make up authentic presence. And we often have in our programs opportunities to practice these and to develop these. So we have clarity. You know, how clear are you? Do you answer the questions clearly? Do you ask questions clearly? Do you clearly communicate about your organization or company and what it offers? Confidence, so critical. I mean, do you show up confidently? That's not arrogance. There's a big difference between arrogance and confidence. Or do you show up insecure? Inspiration. Are you inspiring? Because when you're inspiring as an interviewer, people want to work for the company you're representing. Integrity. Do people see that you walk your talk? That you will be open and honest with them? Openness. How open are you to other perspectives, different points of view? Passion. You know, do you show passion as you're presenting your company? Do you show passion if you're a job seeker and you really want that job? Do you show that passion? That is critical. Polish and poise, right? You don't maybe necessarily need to be in a suit all the time anymore, but you got to show up well-groomed. Do you convey that enough sophistication? Respect. Are you respectful of the people that you're interviewing or the interviewer? Are you being sincere? Thoughtfulness. Are you being thoughtful in the way that you're responding? Trustworthiness. Do they feel that they can trust you and the company you represent? And warmth. You know, a smile goes a long way, and you can see a smile or feel a smile. Even if you couldn't see my video right now, you can feel a smile. But warmth in terms of helping the people feel at ease. So those are 12 authentic presence qualities that if you practice, it will help you to be successful in your career, successful in job interviews. So I'd like to know, out of those 12, what 2 qualities do you feel are most important in interviews? So go ahead and look at these 12 qualities again and put in chat, what are the 2 that you think are most important in interviews? I'd just love to hear from you and see, out of all those qualities, what 2 are most important? So I'm seeing confidence and passion. What else? What are some of that you feel? Clarity, warmth, you know, again, confidence and passion. Trustworthy, inspiring, sincere, trust. Yeah, so seeing a lot of trustworthy and clarity and confidence and sincerity. So we're going to go into a few of these that you feel are most important in interviews. A lot of clarity and a lot of trustworthiness coming up. So let's for sure go into those 2. And then we'll see if we have time to go into a 3rd or 4th as well. So I appreciate that. So let's go to clarity first. Clarity, when you really think of being clear in your communication. It is the ability to communicate your message in an intuitively clear and compelling way. So can you flex to others' communication styles without losing your own authenticity? We're going to talk a little bit about tailoring your message to who you're speaking with in a few minutes, and it's really around different styles. And what do you need for the position you're hiring for? Do you need a people person? Maybe you're not a people person, you're more a point person. You get to the point and move on, but you need a people person. So can you flex that style to more of what you need and more of what that interviewee might be? And we'll talk about that. How do you do that? There's actual clues you can pick up on. Also, listening to and watching your recordings, that you can record any kind of meeting that you might have and just watch yourself and see how you're showing up on video. When we teach our authentic presence and presentation classes, we pick up on all different kinds of nonverbals that people do. It might be slouching in the chair. It might be moving around too much, right? Being distracting in that. It could be fiddling with your jewelry, whatever that is. But it's really good to listen and watch so that you can up the clarity of your message. So what I'd like to hear is, what's one action you could take, or what is one thing you could try to up your clarity in your presence? Would love to hear that. So put that in the chat. Any ideas of how you could up your clarity in job interviews? So go ahead.
So Sharon, while people are typing in Zoom or WebEx, you could easily hit record. And let's say you're an interviewee, you can try to answer your questions and try to look at the camera and then record yourself and see how you would show up as a prospect. And you could do the same thing as a recruiter as well.
Absolutely. Excellent point, Randy. So think about that, an action you can take. What's one thing you could try to really up that clarity? And it might even be, practice your message. I love that, Shannon. Practice how you're going to communicate it. Make sure your questions are clear. Also, how you introduce the company. How do you do that? And is that clear? If you're a job seeker, you could even think about the questions you're going to be asked and clearly answer those, right? We all know the situation, action, result, that SAR method, say the situation, say the action you took, say the result. So definitely be more prepared before presenting. Excellent, Christopher. Joanne, make sure what you are communicating is clear to you first. Yes, and speak clearly and with some excitement. Absolutely. So all of those are great ideas of how to up clarity when presenting. Another one that you said was important in job interviews was trustworthiness. So let's take a look at that. So trustworthiness, that models true positive character qualities and top-level competence of their profession. So how do we demonstrate trustworthiness? Maybe it's repeatedly performing at a high quality or a high level. So I don't know how many touch points you might have with your interview candidates, but they're watching every single touch point. Also, consistently following through on your commitments. If you commit to do something, are you going to follow through on that? So those are two ways that you could demonstrate trustworthiness. And it's so important. I recently had a mentee of mine who was interviewing for an executive position at another company. He was thinking of leaving the company he was at, and he was interviewing for an executive position. And he actually chose to bow out of the interview. He was the #1 final candidate, and they had been looking for this job for a year. And he decided he didn't want to work at the company because there was enough things that happened in terms of lack of follow through and what they were doing in the interview process that he said, I don't think I want to work in this culture. So it really is important that the candidates feel that your culture is trustworthy, that you are trustworthy. And if you're a job seeker, oh my gosh, when I'm hiring people, I want to know they're trustworthy. So what are some actions or ways that you could demonstrate trustworthiness? Any ideas that come with some examples of how you were trustworthy in past jobs? I love that, Maggie. So absolutely. And that's actually a really good question that you can ask as well. So yeah, Cynthia saying, agree, the company is also being interviewed. Does the candidate want to work at your company? Do you demonstrate trustworthiness? Does the company demonstrate trustworthiness? So this is a really important quality. I want you to really think about how can you up your game in demonstrating trustworthiness, whether you're a job seeker or a human resource professional. So let's go to another one, confidence. Confidence is so critical, right, when we're interviewing. And it's the air of assurance such that others know you have the required strength and resolve to do the job. So practicing for an effective delivery, very critical. If you're a job seeker, thinking through those questions, almost always, right? You're asking the job seekers, why do you want this job? I mean, there are definite questions that are asked repeatedly. You need to think through that, and even thinking through your responses to that. And if you are an interviewer, how do you show up? Are you showing up with confidence and confident in yourself, confident in your ability to interview, confident in your company and the way that the company is representing? So all of that is really, really important, that you are showing a confidence. So tell me, what's something that you could do? I mean, those are a couple of examples that I provided, but what is something that you could do to really demonstrate confidence? Whether you're an HR professional or a job seeker, tell me, what could you do to really demonstrate confidence? Any thoughts there? Good posture. Yes, good posture. Speak clearly. Absolutely. And arrogance is saying you're better than someone else. You know, so giving that air that you're better than, that's what you don't want to do. Also, you don't want to be insecure, like, oh, there's probably a better candidate other than me, or be insecure in your ability to represent the company you're at. No, you want to be in that confident place. So whatever you have to do, and I love that posture, genuine humility. Yeah, humility is the ability to admit you don't have all of the answers, and that to show that, and that you might be wrong. Be well prepared for the interview. Speak slowly without without those filler words. Yeah, we're actually going to talk about that in a moment. So in terms of filler words and how important that is. So I want you to think about, we just went through a few of these today, but I want you to think about all 12 and to really be, what are the 2 that you most want to work on as a professional? And then I want you to turn to page, I believe it's 10 in your workbook. And there you can write down the 2 qualities that you most want to work on developing that will really help you to have that authentic presence. You can jot that down either in the workbook or on a sheet of paper right now. And what are a couple things you will do to develop those qualities, to up your game in those qualities? So go ahead and jot that down, and whether you type it in or write it on a sheet of paper, it's whatever you prefer. But really making that commitment and paying attention to that will help you really show up with that authentic presence in job interviews and also in general virtual meetings. You can apply these qualities in any type of meeting, virtual, face-to-face, etc. I love that. Don't look down or away from the camera. It's so easy to look at the little video icons. But if I'm looking at the video icon, then I am not having eye contact. Like right now, I'm looking at a video icon. I'm not having eye contact with you, the audience. So I actually put something on my computer right above my video, a picture, and it helps me to focus on that camera, on that light, because that's making good eye contact. When you're doing interviews physically, it's much easier to look the person in the eye. So definitely look at the camera, not the video icons, and not looking down or away from the camera. So great participation. Thank you so much. And I hope you've thought about those two that you really want to develop. And I'm going to turn it now back to Randy, who's going to take us through the next piece of really making a positive, authentic virtual impression.
So Sharon, you mentioned that picture that you have next to your camera. I've got this guy here. This is Bruce Lee. He's got a figurine that constantly tells me, hey, look at the camera, look at the camera. So anyways, little production humor there, little behind the scenes as well. So the things that I see on camera as a producer, um, I don't know how many books I can write that talk about how people show up, you know, the posture, the position, and what everything else besides what's coming out of your mouth says about you. So you are, of course, the most important thing visually on camera to your audience. So the important things like position. We saw that earlier where we had the position of the faces and where the camera actually is, your posture. Someone mentioned sit tall, look at the camera, and be very, very focused. And what is your body saying now? You can't see much of the body on camera, but that's where things like the facial expressions come in. Now, for appearance, I'm not an HR professional, but in this case, in your case, what would be appropriate? So in the chat, what would be appropriate to wear in an interview virtually these days? So let's see what comes up in chat there. But Sharon, any thoughts from your perspective on what should be worn virtually these days? I see a lot of business casual.
Yes, I do too more now, but Ryan did say shirt and tie and jacket and Marie or sweater, nice top, tie and blazer. So I still am seeing, that's what I was curious about. I think it depends, yeah, wear the same attire as in-person interview. I think it depends on the type of job and the type of culture. So for example, one of our clients is Boeing, and they have a pretty formal culture. So with that, I would definitely say like the suit or a dress and blazer, something like that. But Virgin, which is a Richard Branson company that is a client of ours, very casual. And if you showed up with that, I don't think it'd go over well. So I think there it would be more like business casual. So yeah, I'm seeing Timothy and I wear the same dress as office. Okay, yeah, pajamas, Ryan.
So I've seen in video game companies where that might be appropriate, but yeah, dress like your future boss. That's an awesome thing to say there. Dress one level up from where you want to be, right? So many different perspectives, but it all depends on the audience. So thank you for sharing. Now the body language, as I mentioned, I mean, you can't see much of the body, but imagine I'm not answering questions that someone mentioned earlier while looking down. Maybe I'm reading notes. Sharon, you mentioned the use of something on top of your camera. Well, when you're presenting or when you're answering someone and you actually do have a script, you can actually see what they're doing. You can see them reading. So that's also part of facial expressions. So I'm an extreme introvert, and it's very hard for me to crack that shell of expressions. But when I do, it's very simple. You know, raise of the brows. That actually goes to show openness and sincerity. Showing your hands on camera, that's openness and warmth. You're a very open person, and you are not guarding or you're not hiding anything, which can actually add to the trustworthiness. Now, the facial expressions, we've heard the term RBF. In my case, I've heard the term resting producer face, which basically looks like this. And it's not a frown. It's not me saying no to everything you're saying. It's just me reading something on screen. So depending on your industry, I've heard resting operations face in aerospace, but always keep an eye on your expressions. And we mentioned earlier, recording yourself when you're doing a presentation or when you're practicing for an interview. hit that record button. You'll see the expressions that you just naturally fall to when you're on camera. And we also have those expressions that we see when people are first logging in. They've got the where's the button? Look. So be aware. Camera's on. You never know. The person that created the meeting might have enabled video automatically when you join. So keep that in mind. Now the eye contact, that's again very easy to do when you've got the eye level camera, but it is not very easy when you have your content on your screen, maybe down below or on another monitor. So if you're doing this and your slides are over there, but the audience is over there, what happens is when you don't make eye contact with the audience, you actually give them permission to disconnect from you as the presenter. So definitely keep in mind where everything is placed. I have my slides right underneath the camera, and that is what makes it easier for me to see the content and to be engaged with eye contact. The pace and the pause is one thing, but when it is constantly at a certain speed, it's a challenge for your audience to maintain engagement. So try to use some modulation of the pace and tone of your voice. So I mentioned I'm an introvert and I have to practice this. This is one of those things that I have learned to do just by recording myself. And that's the use of my tone of voice, quieting my voice. Now, I learned this from Sharon. When you want to take control of a large audience, you actually lower your voice. You slow down your tone and your voice. Now, the other thing is when you slow things down, that actually helps eliminate garbage words and um, those filler words. So that's another one. So, you know, that's very hard to listen to, right? So a simple thing that you can do is intentionally pause when you're speaking. Instead of the garbage words, you can learn to fill those gaps of space with just a pause. Now I used a prop earlier. I had my glasses earlier. I've had Bruce Lee on camera, but when you're able to share things from let's say you're in a production or a manufacturing company and you've got a product that you can show on camera, that actually draws your audience in. You can talk about the texture of that, of the grip here. You can actually pop off that chapstick and draw your audience in with a prop. So very simple things that you can do to make a good virtual impression without even saying a word. I do want to focus on these a little bit more because these are some simple things that you just need to remind yourself of. And again, using the camera. Try to practice smiling. If you're not someone like me that doesn't like this, I don't like to smile all day, but I'm on camera, so I just want to make my audience feel comfortable. Sharon's actually going to talk about that in a moment, but the camera and hitting record will raise that level of awareness. You might be a good presenter already, but this is just to raise the level of awareness. Every time you record and watch, you're raising that awareness. I mentioned resting producer face, and it does look like a frown, but just practice again. I like the term of looking beyond the camera at your audience, because you never know when you're recording. Let's say you're doing a presentation and the host hits record. Not only do you have to think about the audience you're currently presenting to, you have that other audience beyond the audience that gets that video after the live audience shared, because you did such a great job using your APQs that Sharon just taught. So just think of keep those things in mind when you're presenting. So I hope that helps. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Sharon. As I mentioned, she's going to talk about how you can use all of this to make your audience feel comfortable and at ease.
Which is so important that we as interviewers definitely help our audience feel at ease. People are often nervous before interviews. And also it's just really nice to be able to help to break that ice and let people feel at ease. So maybe as you log on a little early and you play some music. Now, I wouldn't recommend heavy metal music probably, but maybe some instrumental music that would be relaxing and kind of calm the nerves. Virtual office tour. You know, if you can't do an interview face to face due to COVID, why not walk around with your video and show the office if you're able to do that, so the person can get a feel for the office, and it also helps to make people feel at ease. And start with some easy to answer questions. So maybe you're not going to start with a difficult question that we ease into, but what might be an easy to answer question that you could start with? Any ideas, any thoughts that you might have in the chat around some easy to answer questions that you ease into the interview? Any thoughts that you might think about? It could even just be something as simple as, tell me about the best job you ever had. You know, it's help them talk about something positive, and that often helps them to ease. How are you today? Absolutely, Ryan. That's an easy question to answer. So, and it even allows space that if they are nervous, they might say, hey, I'm a little nervous. I really want this job, whatever that is. So definitely think about easing in with some of those questions. The other thing that you can do to help others feel comfortable and at ease is to prepare your candidates. So what information does the candidate need to be successful? Maybe you want to send some information about the meeting software, because not everyone is an expert at Zoom or WebEx or Teams or GoToMeeting, whatever you might use. You may want to share some expectations, timelines, names and titles of the interviewers. So it's so important that the candidates are able to do their research on the interviewers as well. Look them up on LinkedIn, find out about the company, all of that. Share tips of how to be prepared. Maybe you want to send a little checklist, or discuss a backup plan if technology is an issue. So here's an example of a checklist that you could develop to help the candidates feel prepared. So dress appropriately. You might want to provide suggestions so they know where I wouldn't want to see someone showing up in a suit and tie to the Virgin culture, right? That I gave the example of. They wear jeans and t-shirts, and the more that you can rip the jean, the better. And then test your camera, your microphone and your internet connection. That's a great tip for interviewees to do before the interview. Get familiar with the virtual meeting platform, Zoom, WebEx, whatever that might be. You know, have them log into a meeting. They can do this on their own, but be sure your background matches the impression you want to make. Now, that doesn't mean that they necessarily have to have a virtual background, but even if they sit against a wall or in their living room or something like that. I have seen interviews take place on a bed, and that's not the best, the best impression. Show up on time, early if possible. Research the job and company. I mean, these are just some tips. And here's Christopher saying, give a sense that you're happy to see the interviewer. I've been to interviews where the person giving the interview acted like my presence for the interview was an inconvenience. One even ate their lunch. See, and that is where the authentic presence is missing, right, Christopher? Then if you're interviewing them too, it's like, wow, you don't even have time for me. I prepared for this interview and you're eating your lunch. Or now, obviously, there's ways that you can even communicate if you do have to eat, but you know, can you do that at another time instead of that interview, and really give your undivided attention to that interview? So, but type any additional suggestions you may have in chat that you found helpful to help prepare candidates for the interview. Any other suggestions you may have? I would love to hear them if there's another thing you would put on this checklist to help your candidates feel prepared. Have notes of the questions you want to ask, a direct link. Yep, review the JD. Yeah, so great ideas, and you can develop your own checklist, practice. I love that idea, Tim. So important to practice answering some questions. So wonderful. So the next thing you can do to help others feel comfortable and at ease is something that we have developed at Inside Out Learning called the style awareness. It's a personality assessment, very simple. There are 4 different types of people, right? People, party people, planner people, and point people. So 4 different types of people. And I'd like you to take a look at these descriptions of these 4 types of people. So those people are people who are casual. They're great at maintaining and building relationships. They don't like conflict too much because they like harmony, right? They don't like insensitive people. They're very open. And maybe if you're hiring for a sales position, you want a people person. So party people, they're like faster, love to influence people. They love spontaneity, might be more impulsive, spontaneous, fun, right? And there might be a position like that you're interviewing for, that you want more of a party person. But what are you? Be thinking about that as I go through these. And then planner people, they take their time. They want to make sure they're more careful and cautious. They want to be more task oriented. They take deliberate action. They like accuracy. Engineers can often fall into here. Point people are get to the bottom line quickly, please, and move on, right? So those are the 4 different types of people. What I'd love to hear is, what do you think you are from that description? And Randy is launching a poll right now. Would love to see you choose which one do you most identify with, most relate to. And so I'm seeing a mix. How great, right? We have diversity of personalities on the line, which is wonderful. So we've got people, party people, planner people, point people. And I'm not surprised that the biggest one to an HR audience is people. So of course, right? HR cares about the human resources. So I love that. 56% of you, 25% planner people. You know, you also have to have that as an HR professional. So there's not like a better or worse type here. It's just difference. And the key is, can you tailor your message to your audience? So that's one of the things we teach here. So let's take a look, Randy. Yeah, 53% people, 26% planner people, 16% point people, and 5% party people. So that's what you are. The key is, how do you put people at ease? So when you're interviewing people, I often like to keep this verbal clues next to me. And this is actually in your workbook as well. There are different clues that you can look for to see what type of person are you interviewing. All right. And this is very important too, if you're a job seeker, to try to size up the interviewer to know, what kind of language do I need to speak here? So what are those clues? So I want you to think about that. And you know, what type of style clues do you look for when you're interviewing? Do you adapt your interview style based on the candidate? And you know, if you are looking for a certain type of person, like an engineer, and you want them to be more of a planner person, what are the clues? So right here, there are a bunch of clues, like, okay, well, the person is logical. They might ask, is this really the right thing to do? Let's take this first step. So you could be looking for clues based on the type of person that you really need to meet the best requirements of the job. And then finally, there are different types that really can run into issues with each other and get into conflict with one another. And so when you're on the diagonal, so planner people and party people and people and point people, that's where you can many times have a conflict or a difference. And it's the harder one to understand the other language. You feel like you're presenting to a foreign language, a different language, right, than you speak. So what I'd like you to think about is, how do you adapt to different styles? And what's one way you will try to adapt to a style that you find most challenging? So pick whichever one you find most challenging. Maybe it's the one that's on the diagonal of you. Maybe it's a different one. The one you find most challenging, what's one way that you're gonna try next time when you're interacting with someone that has that style to adapt to their communication. Very important as a job seeker, very important as an interviewer. So please, you know, any ideas, would love to hear. What's that one thing you're going to do in the chat? Feel free to type that and to say, you know, I'm a point person. And so with people, I really need to allow them that time. I need to discuss those personal feelings and personal situations. So it's like, how do I adapt to who's in front of me? So be thinking about that. And then finally, you also need to be looking at not only the skills of the job and the person's presence, but you need to detect soft skills virtually. And how do you do that? What do you think is the most common soft skill that you look for in a candidate? I would love to hear out of these three: creativity, communication, collaboration. What is that one most common soft skill that you look for in a candidate? Communication, communication. Yes, I love that, Tim. I have trouble adapting to point people. I generally meditate before meeting with them and try to understand how they will look at things. Love it. Communication and collaboration. So yes, communication, actually a recent study by Adobe, all right, found that communication is the most sought after soft skill, followed by creativity and collaboration. But how do you detect these soft skills virtually? So some ideas that we had for that is that for creativity, you need to be looking at responses should include the thinking and the process behind their end result. So maybe you want to ask a question like, tell me about a time that you reached a big goal at work and how you reached it. And then the candidate can be able to explain their thinking process and their actions behind that to get the sense of how creative were they and how they reached that goal. So that's an example of how you could do that in terms of virtual. Communication, you know, you need to see, you don't just want to have a one-way interview with a candidate. If you're looking for someone who has good communication skills, then you definitely want to know, can they carry on a conversation without you helping? So really, they should be able to put you at ease as well. So when you maybe put them at ease in the beginning, you need to also make sure that they can carry on part of the conversation and flow with the conversation so it's not just one way. And then collaboration, right? They should include stories about managing conflict and building connection. You really should be hearing things about how they built connection, how they build relationships, how they rely on others and team members. So those are a few examples of how you kind of assess those soft skills when doing the interview. So with that, we really have gone over today. We talked about your space and how important that is to organize your space and to have a good space to conduct the interview. And then your presence. What are those two qualities you're going to work on as a human resource professional or as a job seeker so you show up with that authentic presence? Also, your nonverbal and body language we talked about today. So how are you showing up on video? And then your audience. So how do you put them at ease? How do you communicate with them and also assess the type of person that you need to fill that role and maybe tailor your message and your language to their style as well. Excuse me. And all of that together is your success. So we hope that today that we've provided some tips that you will definitely want to use in the future, because that's what we care about here. And we'd love to know if you have any questions about anything that we've talked about here, or comments or insights, please put that into the chat and we'd be happy to answer them. And Ryan did say he's going to make this video available later today, or I mean, early next week. So here's an example of authentic presence, right? When you get something in your throat and you're like, okay, I'm on video. So you would say, excuse me when I take a sip of water. So anyone can put something in the chat any questions, we're here to help. We'd love to hear from you. All right, so not hearing any right now, but I'd also like to say that at Inside Out Learning, we're dedicated to transformative learning that lasts. And we'd like you to know about a couple of ways to stay connected with us. And we have another handout for you today that you will see the link here. And you can click on that. Highly recommend you do. Randy took hours of his time to put together this handout on learning about different platforms, whether that be Zoom or WebEx, etc. And so let's say you liked when we did polls today, or you liked when, you know, maybe you like to put people in small groups, or you want to know how to use annotation. Definitely download that. It's going to tell you a lot more about the technology in virtual meetings. Also, we have a free community of practice on LinkedIn. And there you go. I mean, you can register for that. It's complimentary, and we would love to have you part of our community of practice. We share tools with each other. We share new information, new articles in this community of practice, and we'll be sharing video clips too that can be helpful with each other, and we facilitate a dialogue. So we'd love to have you join that. And then for more information on our programs, if you like the way we presented today, we do teach authentic presence and presentation skills. We teach the authenticity code. We have virtual programs coming up in October. We'd love to see you there. Or maybe it's something that you want to bring to your company. Also, we have a virtual workplace engagement program that is a public program that we offer quite a few times a year that teach more tools for how to work and thrive virtually. And also many diversity and inclusion programs right now that we are doing for many clients. So we'd love to hear from you.
I don't know if it's just me, but I think Sharon, you froze up just for a second.
Okay. I don't know what I was saying when I froze. So, but I'd love to hear from you and connect with you. So feel free to email me personally at drsharon@insideoutlearning.com. So any questions that you may have, please put those into the chat. And I am going to, because I'm not seeing questions, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, who has a few words that he wanted some time to close out.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Dr. Sharon and Randy. I loved the training. It was fantastic. Lots of great insights, and I love the level of engagement from the attendees. So a shout out to the attendees too. I've been in a lot of these before where we ask the questions and no one actually participates. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to turn it over to Vera Lee. She's a member of the board. She's got a few announcements, and then we'll wrap up and let you guys get back to it.
Thank you very much. Wow, what an amazing, brilliant session. Thank you, Sharon, Randy, Shannon, and Samantha. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. And I learned so much. And I'm certainly looking forward to going through all your materials and checking you out on LinkedIn. So thank you again. So my name is Vera Lee Keenan. I'm a business services representative with Arizona at Work, Maricopa County. And today I'm going to share some resources for job seekers and job developers and employers. Thank you, Ryan. First of all, Arizona at Work is a statewide network of offices. We serve job seekers of all backgrounds, abilities, skill levels, and ages. Our services include career advice and access to federal funds to help further your education or retrain for another career. We're seeing a lot of interest with people coming into our center. They're interested in funding for instance, CDL licenses, so they can get a career driving, which is very much in demand and very well paid. We're seeing quite a lot of that. Then Arizona Job Connection is a statewide network of offices serving job seekers. Arizona Job Connection is a statewide resource where job seekers can search many, many thousands of jobs and employers can post their jobs. It's sort of a matchmaking service. It's completely free. So please check it out and register for a job seeker or employer account if you wish. So now I'm going to share some information about some of our community partners. We start off with Best Companies AZ. Their website has great resources for job seekers and employers. Then I'm sure a lot of you know about Career Connectors. They're an amazing organization. They have many resources for job seekers, including resume and LinkedIn help. They host regular virtual meetings featuring keynote speakers and employers who are hiring. They send out newsletters every week. So if you've not done so, I'd encourage you to sign up on their website. So Goodwill, everybody's heard of Goodwill. They have an amazing website and amazing resources to help job seekers. And as well, they host lots of virtual job fairs. Pipeline AZ is another great resource for job seekers and employers. You can search and post jobs, and they regularly host virtual job fairs. Next slide, please. Well, I'm very excited to announce something that's just been rolled out very recently. We have now 3 workshops. They're all virtual. They are for job seekers. As you can see, there's the Virtual Employment Academy. It's a 2-hour comprehensive employment workshop where you'll learn about job search techniques, resume preparedness, etc. Then it covers interviewing and how to earn your Arizona Career Readiness Credential, or ACRC, which I'm going to speak about in a minute. Then the other workshop is Assistance with Creating a Resume, 30-minute online learning session to help you create a professional resume and cover letter. And finally, the third session is Assistance with Developing Interview Skills, which is a 30-minute online learning session to prepare you for success in your next job interview. But after today, wow, I don't know if we can top that. I don't know if we can improve upon what we all learned today. But anyway, we do offer this 30-minute online tutorial. So next slide, please. So I mentioned the Arizona Career Readiness Credential. This is absolutely great. It's a bona fide qualification, and it's recognized by Arizona's employers. And what it does is, as you can see, it shows competency in hard and soft skills. We all know it's great to have hard and soft skills. You need the soft skills of communication, and of course you need the hard skills like critical thinking and problem solving, and of course applied mathematics. That's definitely a hard skill. So this is again a really great qualification. It's super for your resume, and you can see it does have grades: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So if you'd like any information about that, or anything I'm talking about actually, I'm just going to share my contact details with everybody. Next slide, please, Ryan. So we have, I know some of you get it, and I know I've had some very, very good feedback about this. But any job seeker that is looking for updated information about jobs, companies that are hiring, etc., if you'd like to text us to 22828 to get every week, we have, again, lots of information and resources about jobs that you as a job seeker, I'm sure, would find very valuable. Okay. There's a question from Deb. Oh, great, great. So what was it you were saying? I'm just checking.
Deb
Okay.
asked about how to help young adults read their interviewer to know how to present themselves.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great, super. Now, I'm going to encourage all of you that aren't already members to join NETPA. As you know, we have amazing sessions like the one we had today. So if you'd like to join and get access to all the presentations and the information and resources that we offer, I'd encourage you to please join. As you can see, it's only $25 for an individual a year and $75 for a company or organization up to 5 employees. So again, encourage you to join, and you can ask Ryan or myself for details about how to join, or you can just look at our website. Thank you. Very excited with this. Save the date. Our next event is going to be on Friday, October the 16th at 10 o'clock again. It's going to be virtual, and we're going to have an employer panel. We're looking for up to 6 employers who want to participate. If you are an employer, or if you know of an employer who you think would like to participate, please let me know. It's a really great way to promote your company and your position. So again, if you are an employer, if you know an employer who'd like to participate, it's a wonderful opportunity to get in front of a lot of job seekers. Finally, I'd like to thank again Sharon and all your team. It was absolutely great. I mean, to be honest, you're a very hard act to follow.
We love hearing that.
Thank you again. So finally, stay safe, have a great weekend. And again, thank you to our presenters, and thank you to all the people who have participated and joined us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
so
you.
Appreciate your participation.
Have a great weekend, everyone.